thing like that. So I really do appreciate the great job you do on the reporting.
Thank you. That was an interesting piece. I took a lot of heat from some people on that.
I can imagine.
Yep, it was not an easy, and it was an opinion piece. But hey, the only thing I'll say about that, they could check it out on the website. I do think IPCPR did a really good job. They got a top speaker. Now, I didn't like the speech that was given, but it was give them credit for going out there and getting someone who's a top list guy.
Yeah, and I noticed that right at the end of the article that you wrote, that's exactly kind of how you phrased it as well, that you did give them credit for going out and landing a pretty big keynote speaker. I thought that was awesome. So my next question is, as you were growing, whether it was via Cigar Coop or Stogie Geeks, is there one particular interview that you did at one point with, maybe it was a particular cigar maker or the owner of a company, but was there one particular interview where you kind of had that like celebrity moment where you thought to yourself, wow, I can't believe I'm finally interviewing so-and-so?
Oh, it was definitely Jose Sejas, episode 101 of Stogie Geeks. And, Jose Sejas he ran Tabacalera de Garcia, the largest factory in the world. He was responsible for a lot of big brands, everything from Monte Cristo, Vega Fina. He had his hand in that. And I think everyone has smoked a Jose Sejas cigar at one point or another in their life. Mm-hmm. I mean, even like people who aren't regular cigar smokers, I think, had it. And it turned out that I got to know Jose's son, Enrique, and one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, I had a shot to interview Jose Sejas, which I never thought I would. Paul and I had that shot, and it was just that was the wow moment. I just sat there, and he is so knowledgeable, and he's such a class act, and he's gone over to start it. He kind of launched his own brand, Matilde. Now his sons are taking it over, so he was kind of just getting that. It was an education that I'll never forget. I've had a chance to interview him another time after that. And so I'm just really grateful. That one for sure.
Very cool. So that was a fun day at work for sure, I bet.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I remember the episode number. I didn't, immediately when I knew the question, I said it's 101. I remember it was because we had Nestor Miranda on for episode 100, who's my favorite guy to interview because he's so much fun. But in terms of and that was a great interview as well. But I knew it was right after Nestor.
Well, that's a very cool answer because, I've just watched so many of the video interviews that you've done with so many of the people in this business, and I thought to myself, boy, I wonder which one was like that first like wow moment. So very cool, very cool.
Thank you.
Now, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and I'm pretty confident I kind of know what the answer is, but I'd love to hear it straight from you, and especially on my end too, because you're pretty much usually the first source I go to for reviews. I really enjoy the way that you go through the cigar review. I like your rating system, which we'll mention here. But what I was curious to ask is, as Cigar Coop keeps growing and growing, and your presence and familiarity with all these cigar makers and manufacturers in the industry grows, do you ever find yourself having any troubles at all as you're doing a review to stay objective, even when you've got a cigar and you're like, boy, I'm not too crazy about this. It's not burning great, or the construction's not so great. Do you have any trouble at all still staying objective, or is that something that you're pretty confident in being able to still do at this point?
I think at this point I've gotten the confidence doing this as long as I have. I mean, early on it was a lot tougher. There's a lot of good cigars out there, and because there's a lot of good cigars, it makes it easier. And if that day changes, it's going to be more complicated. The worst time of the year, though, is the end of the year list, because that's the year I have to basically piss everyone off.
I got you.
And there's no favors with that. And I get more, like, I don't want to say hate mail, but I get more kind of upset manufacturers at the end of the year, and it's like, so that's the one. So the answer is no. Unfortunately, I think but I'm not going to take a cheap shot at someone either. So if a cigar had drawer issues or plug issues, I'll usually have a conversation with them about that in terms of going forward with the review. And there are some reviews that I've had people not happy about, so as well.
Yeah, well, it's part of the business, right? All right, so what I wanted to mention, since we were just talking about your reviews, I always found it kind of interesting, and as far as I understand, I mean, I initially saw the review system on Stogie Geeks, and I'm pretty sure at Cigar Coop you still do the same type of review in terms of the names. But I always just really enjoyed the way that you guys give the final review score. You have your 5 or the half box to fight Chuck Norris. So I wondered if you could maybe just take a moment and share with the listeners those review names and how you guys came up with those.
Right, and so I got to give all the credit to Paul Asadorian and the team. Before I joined the show, those ratings were in place. When we merged Cigar Coop and Stogie Geeks as kind of a unified entity, we decided to go with a unified scoring system. Now, Cigar Coop was using something similar, but they were also using a number system. Mm-hmm. And the way I kind of did it going forward is I kept the number system on merit, but the Stogie Geek system used another intangible, and that's like, how likely am I to buy this cigar? So it starts off with, at the bottom, and again, these are, I'll give the guys credit for these names, lawn mulch, right? We have done a few lawn mulches, but we're real selective about if we're going to throw a lawn mulch rating on that. The second one is called the angler, which is kind of like, you're fishing or something, and you're angling for a smoke. Something you would smoke, but maybe not necessarily buy, but something that's totally smokable. Then the next level was try one. And try one is exactly what it says. Hey, it's a good cigar, and it's worthy to try it. Mm-hmm. Then we go to fiver, which is I'll buy 5 of them and put them in my humidor. Box split. Hey, this is good enough. I'll split a box with a friend. Mm-hmm. Box worthy. I'll buy a whole box. Then there was this Chuck Norris and Oasis rating. And I'm going to jump ahead. Oasis was the highest rating. And that's one where basically, according to Paul, you'll crawl across the desert on broken glass and you'll get that cigar. It's kind of price independent at that point. It doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. But because they were very selective at the Oasis rating, that's where they kind of came up with something in between Box Worthy and Oasis, which is Fight Chuck Norris. So we've kept those ratings system in place as long as Paul's okay with it going forward. We'll keep it. If he had ever asked us to change it, we'd oblige. But in general, we think it's a unique system because you can, for example, here's a great example. There was a cigar called the Davidoff Royal Release. Okay. It was an $85 cigar that I reviewed. Whew. Okay. It was a great cigar. It scored a 94. Okay. Now, the problem was it wasn't something, because it's $85, you're not going to tell someone to buy 5 of these even. Right. So it garnered a try one, which is not at the highest Stogie Geeks rating, but merit-wise, it's a 94. But you're balancing out that price piece in there, which is why I think there's a need to have 2 different ratings, because that wouldn't be really fair. But there's no way I could tell someone to go buy a 5-pack of an $85 cigar. It's just very difficult. Yeah.
And also to buy a whole box and have to fight Chuck Norris on top of the $85.
Exactly. Yeah. Chuck. Yeah. There's a lot of overhead with that.
So a little bit ago, you did mention how at the end of the year you do your. Now, I can't remember. Do you do top 20 or is it top 25 cigars of the year?
Actually, I do top 30.
Oh, okay.
Because I do it in a count. So I'm the original cigar countdown. Like the Casey. I started that in 2010. Before, and basically I did a Casey Kasem style in the month of December, so that's why it was 30, with like one day off for Christmas.
Okay.
I've now moved that to bridge between December and January. It's just a little easier, but yeah, so I've kept 30 to count it down because it's always been like that.
I gotcha. That makes sense. I like that. Well, what I wanted to ask about, I was super excited last year when you gave the number 2 overall cigar of the year to JRE's Aladino Elegante size cigar. And personally, I'm just a huge fan of the JRE company. I love their cigars. I love the story and the history with the family and everything like that. And I saw on your blog that you visited their farm down in Honduras. So just because I'm such a huge fan and I was so happy to see that their cigar to get such a high rating from you, and then found out you visited the farm, I was hoping that maybe you could just share a minute of what it was like going down there to Honduras, meeting Justo and his father Julio and seeing the farm.
Right, yeah. So, and by the way, I think this Aladino, people catching on to it, and it wasn't because of me. I think it just took a while to get into more markets. So I think you're going to see a lot of high ratings for it this year because it's new. But yeah, I got a chance to go down to Honduras. for folks who know, Justo Aroa and Julio Aroa are the owners of Jerry Tobacco. Julio is the father of Justo and Christian Aroa, who's with CLE and used to be with Camacho. But Julio Aroa has still, even after he sold Camacho to Davidoff, maintained his farm. He never gave up the farms there. And that's been his thing. He had to stay out of the industry for a while before actually coming back in with his own brands with JRE. He's brought his son Justo in, who's an agricultural engineer by trade. So maybe not a tobacco grower, he understands agriculture. When you see this, it's a very interesting thing. So you go to, it's basically the old Camacho compound. They have a massive farm, and they employ a lot of innovative techniques in there. The big thing that they do, and it's important that they put innovation in because they grow authentic Corojo, the seed from Cuba.
Yep.
It's a seed that has low yields because of blue mold. But what the Aroas have been able to do, and particularly Julio, is they've put innovations in to basically help maximize the yields. So a few things that they've put in, like they've put eucalyptus trees around the farm, which kind of, basically keep the bad things out. They also employ best manufacturing processes. So again, to kind of prevent contamination from going there. And the other thing is that's really interesting is they're very, very what I call priming focused. They track the primings that are different for folks that don't know. It's the different leaves on a plant from top to bottom. And a higher priming leaf will be bolder than a lower priming leaf. And I don't want to say other cigar companies don't do it because they do, but to the level and the sophistication that the Aroas do this with, this is why they're able to get so much out of the Corojo is what I've taken. Now, their factory's there for JRE Tobacco. And what's interesting is you have this big farm, but the factory is very much a boutique small factory, which has a very intimate feel, and it allows them to be very hands-on with the production aspects. Now, there's room for this factory to grow, so it will be there, but it's still I would still classify it as a boutique factory. Just an amazing place to go. And I've been to a lot of farms and factory, but this was very, very unique, and I was very, very privileged to have that opportunity. I actually told Justo I'm inviting myself back there, so yeah.
Yeah, I unfortunately, as a photographer, I had a wedding. Justo's he's been up here to our area in Pennsylvania a few times, and I was supposed to meet him one night at a local cigar shop, and I just could not get out of work, and I was all bummed out that I kind of missed that opportunity. But it was interesting to hear what you just said and read it on your website too, because that authentic Corojo, that is a fantastic tobacco. So I'm glad that they figured out what was necessary to grow that, and for us to be able to enjoy it. It's awesome.
It's an old school cigar too. It's a throwback, but I'd say it's a medium. But it's very. I mean, and here's the thing: there's all these different sizes of that, and each of the sizes have a nice little nuance to it as well.
Yeah, and that Elegante, it's just a beautiful cigar.
I'm not a Lancero guy, and that was incredible. It's just a great cigar.
Yep. So now back to reviewing cigars, and we just mentioned about your the top 30 countdown that you do, and I was just wondering, this question is I've been asking different people in the industry this question, and it seems that every time I ask it, I'm getting a little bit of a different answer. So I kind of wanted to hear what your take on this is. But with everything that's been going on the past year and a half or so with the FDA regulations and kind of holding up new cigars, it was supposed to be holding up new cigars being released, and I know that there's been some workarounds and things like that. But in terms of people like yourself and other reviewers that do kind of the end of the year kind of countdown, is there really much effect on how that will occur this year in terms of less new cigars to be able to review, or is it really not much of a big deal?
I don't think it's going to be a big deal this year. I think there's enough technically stuff that's come out. Now, the big issue is when it's really come out, right? Because everything technically didn't come out this year. So that's kind of the technicality with that. I personally was moving away from doing a calendar year type of cigar list and moving more. I've actually been in the minority. I've been a little more supportive of the cigar aficionado way of doing it. And I'm not saying I agree 100% with the way to do it, but the concept of basically taking the best cigar of the year, because like tobacco vintages are changing and you're getting different crops and maybe it's moving from a different factory, I think that can affect the overall cigar. And I think that those are things particularly that need to be under consideration when you're looking at a cigar of the year. I'm not going to do that this year, but probably next year I'm going to go to that. And I'm just kind of